My dearest brothers and sisters. This is Hakann speaking. I greet you in peace and love. If you read enough spiritual articles from various sources, sooner or later you will encounter perspectives that seem contradictory. For example, you should choose some kind of spiritual practice and do it regularly. But you should also go with the flow and not force things. Which should you actually do? What if on a given day you don't feel like meditating, or you feel like going for a walk instead of meditating? Spiritual sources say that you shouldn't be excessively attached. But don't you need a large amount of attachment to your spiritual path in order to have the discipline to sit down and do some spiritual practice every day? You should focus on love and light. But isn't that kind of naive in a world where dark controllers are trying to enact depopulation and kill most people? Shouldn't you be practical? Tunia once said to drop the concept of good and evil because so much judgment and hate and feelings of being better than them comes with it. Yet, us galactics are fighting evildoers. Isn't that contradictory? We're told that duality is bad. But when you really drill down to it, you could label pretty much any message as being dualistic in some way. Eating when you're hungry is dualistic. Locking your front door is dualistic. So, what gives? Some sources say that all you need is love, or all you need is to be present in the current moment. Yet, endless messages get written regardless. So is just being present all you need, or not? Should you focus on improving your own life and doing your own spiritual practice, or should you focus on helping others? So, as you can see, there are a lot of messages that say at least seemingly contradictory things. Now, in a lot of cases these things aren't actually contradictory. For example, helping yourself is a valid path, and helping others is also a valid path. And from a high enough perspective both of these things are sort of equivalent because all is one. For some people it is optimal to focus on love and light, and for others it is optimal to focus on practically working against the dark controllers in some ways. It is possible to work against the dark controllers without judging them or being emotionally hostile to them. Once you embrace that you are in fact a reincarnating soul, it may become possible to focus on love and light, or focus on your spiritual practice, or focus on helping others, without being excessively preoccupied with what the dark controllers are doing. Because after all, on the most fundamental level you are safe. Still, in some cases contradictions may seem hard to resolve. Then what should you do? Well, I would give up the Earth-human idea that there is only one universal truth that applies to everyone. Instead, I would adopt the idea that perspectives are your toolbox. And you can work with them as appropriate. So for example, the idea of go with the flow is one valid perspective, it is one useful tool that you can apply as is useful. And the idea of have discipline and do your standard spiritual practice regularly is another valid perspective, and is another useful tool to have in your toolbox. Which of these two is the one universal truth? Is the one universal truth that you should go with the flow, or that you need to have discipline and be regular in your chosen spiritual practice? Well, neither of those two really is the one universal truth, because some people should be going with the flow more, and other people should have more discipline about their chosen practice. Some people should care more about what others think, and some people should care less about what others think. And both of those perspectives, you should care more about what others think and you should care less about what others think, are useful tools that you can keep in your toolbox, and you can use them as appropriate. How do you know which tool you should use when? Well, that is where wisdom and intuition and guidance comes in. Or if you struggle to access those things, just live and try out things and you'll get experience and you'll learn what works well for you. There are also some perspectives that are only useful at a higher level of consciousness, and other training wheel perspectives that are useful at a lower level of consciousness. For example, the idea that all you need is love and light is the perfect thing to teach to a spiritual novice, because love is so fundamental. But a more spiritually advanced person needs to learn that being kind and loving in the normal way is only the appropriate thing to do 90% or 95% of the time. The other 5 to 10% of the time you should call out dysfunction, or be firm with someone, or not tolerate the intolerable, etc. So, which is the true perspective, that all you need is love and light, or that you need strength and wisdom too? Well, I would advise love and light to the spiritual novice, and I would advise love and strength and wisdom to the more spiritually advanced person who has already learned the lesson of love. Higher perspectives aren't necessarily better than lower perspectives, because higher perspectives often come from non-physical beings, and you don't have the luxury of being non-physical at the moment. Therefore, you need to care about lower concerns that higher non-physical beings don't have to worry about. Furthermore, some higher consciousness lessons may be counterproductive if low consciousness people try to learn them. If someone is told that strength is important, before they've learned about the importance of love, then that can encourage jerk-like behavior. Similarly, teaching someone about the concept of flow, if they don't yet have any kind of discipline or good routines, can lead to a situation where the person misuses the concept of flow in order not to do useful, unpleasant things. So, it's best to not focus on which perspective is the one ultimate truth, and instead to see which perspective is useful for you at the present moment. Also, if there seems to be a perpetual culture war between two things, then probably both sides have some good points and some blind spots, and neither side has the ultimate truth, even though one side might be more functional than the other side. So for example, is mainstream left-wing politics or mainstream right-wing politics the one universal truth? Well, neither of them is. Both sides have their strengths and their flaws. Ultimately, mainstream left-wing politics is the unintegrated feminine, and mainstream right-wing politics is the unintegrated masculine, and you can't really throw away either the feminine or the masculine without unbalancing things. Ideally, you have both the left-wing and the right-wing perspective in your toolbox, and you see the strengths and flaws in both, and you can look at the world through either lens. Now, it's entirely fine to think that overall one of the two is currently significantly more functional than the other. It's fine to vote for one of the two. But neither of the two is the ultimate truth. Of course, it's also fine to just not care about politics and to focus on self-improvement or helping people instead. Just because you can gather tools in your toolbox, doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do so. So, in summary, rather than trying to figure out which perspectives are the sole objective truths and which perspectives are objectively false, it's more useful to see perspectives as tools in your toolbox. And you can take them out and use them as needed. Ultimately, words are just man-made concepts anyway. So rather than focusing on whether a particular sentence is the ultimate truth, ask yourself whether a particular sentence is useful for you in the present moment. A good spiritual message can show you a map of the terrain. It can be beneficial to spend some time looking at maps, but ultimately maps aren't the one ultimate truth. Maps are maps, and no amount of staring at maps will bring you ultimate fulfillment. Instead, occasionally look at maps while continuing on your spiritual journey, walk, breathe, do your spiritual practice, meet your needs, spend time in nature, and follow your intuition and your soul. If you want to know the ultimate truth, sit down in nature and breathe, and feel your connection to everything. That is the ultimate truth. Now, you may need to first let go of illusions and old pain and old concepts to fully appreciate that, and that is what spiritual practice is for. I hope this was helpful. I love you very much and I wish you a very good week. Your star brother, Hakann.